All right, let's talk about a story you've almost definitely heard before, the parable of the boiling frog. It's this really chilling little tale that's been used for ages as a warning about the kind of dangers that sneak up on you. Just a simple picture of a frog in a pot of water, but it represents this really potent story with a moral. It's a tale that says a lot about how we handle threats that build up slowly. And, as we're about to find out, the real truth behind this story is way more interesting than you probably think.
So this is the classic version, the one everyone knows, and it is just haunting, isn't it? The imagery is so strong, this idea of a creature that's so comfortable, so lulled by the slow creeping change that it doesn't even notice the disaster that's coming, not until it's way, way too late. And that core idea is exactly why the story has stuck around for so long.
So yeah, to put it simply, the whole idea is that the frog is just calmly sitting there as the water gets hotter and hotter and it basically gets cooked without ever realizing it needs to escape. It's become this really stark metaphor for our own inability to react to problems that creep up on us.
It's a fantastic story, a really memorable warning. But hang on a second. Let's just ask the obvious question here. If you actually tried this, would it work? Is that really how a frog's body works?
And the answer from modern science is a big, fat nope. A real frog, with all its survival instincts working, it's absolutely going to jump out. The famous story is, when you get right down to it, a biological myth. So let's get into the science of it, right? Let's break down why this long-held belief just doesn't hold up. Why does biology completely contradict this very powerful story?
Okay, so here's what's really going on. Frogs are ectotherms. That's just a fancy way of saying they get their body heat from the world around them. So when things get too hot, what's their first instinct? To move. As that water warms up, a frog doesn't get sleepy, it gets more and more agitated, and it's going to be actively looking for an exit. Oh, and for the record, that other part of the story, dropping a frog into boiling water, it doesn't frantically jump out, it dies instantly.
But here's where things get really fascinating. Before we completely dismiss the story as nonsense, we gotta look back in time. Because this myth didn't just pop up out of thin air. For a while there, it actually seemed like it had some science to back it up.
Believe it or not, back in the 1800s, scientists were genuinely running experiments on this. But the results were all over the map. Some found that, yeah, the frog tries to escape. But then others claimed they proved the story was true, that you could boil a frog and it wouldn't even move. So, what was going on?
And the answer, the key to this whole puzzle, wasn't if the water was heated, it was how fast. That one single variable is the reason why different scientists were getting completely different results.
And this chart just lays it out perfectly. Look at those numbers. In the experiment where the frog didn't escape, the heating rate was less than 0.2 degrees Celsius per minute. I mean, that is incredibly, ridiculously slow. Any rate of heating that you or I would actually consider gradual in the real world, yeah, the frog gets active and it gets out of there.
So if the story is basically false under any realistic circumstances, why does everybody know it? How has it survived for so long? Well, the answer is pretty simple. Its value was never about being scientifically accurate. It was about its power as a metaphor.
And this is what gave us the term boiling frog syndrome. It just perfectly describes that human tendency to ignore a problem when it starts out small and grows really, really slowly, right up until it becomes this huge catastrophic crisis.
And once you know the term, you start seeing it everywhere. People use it to talk about our slow reaction to climate change, or the creepy, gradual horror of an abusive relationship, or even how our civil liberties can be slowly eroded over time. It's just a really powerful way to picture any problem that sneaks up on us.
Maybe the most famous modern example was Al Gore in An Inconvenient Truth. He used the story to try and jolt the audience into recognizing the slow but catastrophic threat of global warming. What's interesting, though, is that in his version, the frog gets rescued. It's kind of a hopeful twist, right? It suggests that it's not too late for us to jump out of the pot. So, in the end, that's really what the boiling frog story is. It's not factually true, but it's powerful as a metaphor. It's a mental shortcut, a kind of useful lie that helps us get our heads around a concept that's actually really hard to visualize, the danger of gradual change.
And that's what brings this whole lesson right back to us, doesn't it? It kind of forces us to look around and ask ourselves a pretty important question.
So here's the real takeaway. The frog in the pot might be a myth, but boiling frog syndrome is very, very real. It makes you ask, what water is slowly heating up around you?
What's that one thing you're tolerating today that would have been completely unthinkable a year ago? See, ultimately, the story isn't really about frogs. It's about us, and it's asking if we'll notice the temperature rising before it's too late.